I'm Jules Irvin-Rooney, and I apologize that I am not doing this via my computer. And it might be kind of a shaky recording because it's by my hand. But I recorded like 2 or 3 times yesterday with my computer, and it never got my audio. So we're going to go with this. I'm Jules Irvin-Rooney. I'm doing my micro credential final project on using Socratic Seminar to empower gifted learners in dual enrollment English 112. This is for micro credential spring 2025. So who are my students? I teach at Tucker High School. The ones for this class are specialty center students. They take this class in lieu of English 11, their junior year English, and they've been accepted into the specialty school. They come from all over the county. For this, my apologies, there are 27 in this class. These kids like structure and choice, and they like feeling like they have a choice in their decisions and a voice in exactly like some final products, but they also really like structure and to feel like their days are somewhat similar. And so that's why I've scaffolded and chunked my unit in a particular way. This is their second semester of college courses, so they take full curriculum of Reynolds classes. They like history. They take, I'm blinking now, but either a Reynolds like language, or they take also a Reynolds math their junior year, and their other classes are going to be a study hall, but also maybe APs. So they're very full classes, very rigorous, very demanding classes. So building in some time to be thinking through and learning and igniting the process of it is really useful. In this class, I have 14 gifted students, and then I have 4 ADHD students. As I mentioned, diverse group of interests, and diverse group of economic backgrounds and cultural and racial backgrounds. So my instructional goals for this, I have them first semester for English 111, which is College Composition 1. And then this unit that I'm talking about today is from English 112, College Composition 2. So we were leading throughout the whole year to have this big research argument unit that I'm in the midst of with them right now as I'm recording. But when I did this lesson for them, it was almost like 4 or 5 weeks ago, where we were leading up to this point that we are in this semester, where they would have, like, at this point in the semester, the end game is that they're building an 8 to 12 page paper with at least 8 credible sources, three of which that are peer reviewed. They're using a college library system to be finding the articles. So I've got to build them into being able to use these articles to synthesize and support their points and really build an argument. So we start small throughout the year, and then by the time I'm in English 112, somewhat midway, I'm wanting to build their rhetorical and argumentation skills. I want them to synthesize 6 sources that I've chosen so that by the time they get to later in the semester, they can choose their own, and they can collaborate through critical thinking and dialogue. And if you notice some little crazy animal behind my computer, that's my dog running through the room. All right, so pre-assessment. How did I determine some things? I gave them a pre-assessment that was a mini synthesis 2-paragraph of bite-sized text, also a quick write on their beliefs about education, because the small unit that they were working on was on the purpose of education. And so that's like the theme of the 6 readings that they had to do. Within the mini synthesis from bite-sized text, there's some, I wanted to see how they could deal with both of them. And then also a self-reflection on synthesis and discussion confidence. We have done many small groups and even larger groups, discussions and seminars throughout the class, but we hadn't, like, we were building to this type of Socratic seminar, and I really wanted them to be very learning centered and learn how to ask the questions that can then help them with their eventual summative of a paper on these topics. So I want to see where they were first, and I had this. So they were looking at the quick response about what does it mean to synthesize from multiple sources. So I want to make sure like we were on the same page with academic language. And also them thinking about other stuff we've done this year and what they've done in their 9th and 10th grade years, and maybe in other classes, and put that towards here. This was non-graded, but I wanted them to have a text pair activity where they looked at an excerpt A and an excerpt B and see how they could write it and put them in a paragraph and see relate to one another. And then I had them think about strategies that we might have used before in class, or maybe strategies that they've used in other classes for keeping track of the main ideas. We had built upon this some earlier in the semester with a synthesis matrix. And I really wanted them to come up with and see, like, where were they leaning? What could they use? Is it like a mind map? Like, what else could they be doing with it? And then last but not least, a confidence in seminars. I know who my dominant speakers were, and I know who really could lead a class. Like if you gave them the mic, they could take it over for 20-30 minutes. But then some of my students really have a quiet aptitude for some conversations, and I want to see what they were thinking, and also just everyone's in the rooms, like thoughts on like doing more of a Socratic and talking in front of others, because as I'll mention later, like their peers thought process really influences them. So I want a few of them even said that in the pre-assessment. So I really was glad I had done that. How I used the pre-assessment was I used it to help group the students to deal with the readings when I first assigned them. And then also I saved the data from the question about group discussions, and I used that to help create the inner and outer circle, like the first go around, and then how they would switch and who they were partnered up with and how they could work together to build questions. We broke the texts up. So there were 6 texts. There was 3 one week and then 3 another. And then they dealt with some of my questions that modeled how I wanted them to be asking some questions, some level 1, level 2, level 3 models of questions. And then they also like broke down their understanding of the text, but then built their own questions. The level 1 questions that I guided them to do are basically questions that they could answer just by looking at the text. They have a right or wrong answer. The level 2 had multiple interpretations, but they could find the answer still in the text. And so I was for all questions, I'm very text heavy in wanting them to support it. Level 3 could be text itself, text to world, text to other texts. And so there I was having them build questions like from the different texts and how they intertwined, and also other things that they might have read. So the strategy we were using is Socratic seminar questioning. I was doing it in the fishbowl format. I assigned them inner and outer circles with partners. I liked the idea of them knowing ahead of time who was inner, who was outer, who they were partnered with, so they could work to build their questions. knowing about the pre-assessment and also just knowing my kids, I knew that some of them just do not like to talk, and others like to talk way too much and need to learn the skill of pausing and listening. Um, and even though my rubric has it that you cannot dominate a conversation and earn an A, and you cannot talk, you cannot go silent the entire time and earn an A, students need encouragement. So I had sticky notes for low pressure peer support, where they have sticky notes throughout the room and at the main table, and they could be using them to like suggest something that someone in the inner circle should say, like from the outer circle perspective, or just give them an idea, just giving them encouragement. And the kids really grasped onto this. We had timed roles. We had built-in prep. We had built-in time afterwards for reflection. And we talked about how this was a building block for their summative of a paper where they would be discussing all of these and using the support that they've come up with and using like a guiding principle of some of the questions or a question that they came up with and discussed that they were going to be fleshing out in an actual paper. So student evidence of impact. I prioritized level 3 questions. They had to build at least 6 level 3 questions, and they had to answer them before we started. They had to have their prep done, printed on their desks at the beginning of the seminar. I had talked them through that how I'm going to use part of the prep to help guide their grade. Like I looked through their prep, I like made sure that it was all done. And then afterwards, before I graded their Socratic, I looked through their prep and saw some of the questions, and they reflected on some of their questions. And so it had highlighted some parts for me to help me see what they had done. In this video, you're going to see examples of the fishbowl, and I'm going to only play like a teeny tiny part of it for the interest of time because I'm seeing what my time is right now. But just give you an idea, and the link is going to be here, so if anyone wants to watch it more in full, you definitely can. But you will see me start in the video, and then I'll guide you through it more. And I have a feeling the volume is off because I was in meetings. Here we go.
Are y'all ready? Are y'all ready to Socratic? All right.
So I did a terrible job filming, like I might be doing a terrible job filming now.
Student, when they say in praise of the F word, what does the F word mean? Failure. Okay. Just so we don't go back home and like this lady's class is using the F word all the time.
I'm gonna scooch it over to here.
And it's not balanced between teachers and administrators. I mean, I also think that with the 2 years are better than 4, how 2 years of education can be considered, I guess, good. I mean, not necessarily good, but the whole article.
So you can see like the students are actively engaged. I had a student in the background. Now one does have a computer out, which I'm surprised I didn't catch that a little bit earlier. And I haven't hit pause. You can see I am great with technology. Luckily, this is not micro-credential technology. So students synthesized and challenged our ideas. Students were taking turns talking. We had a piece of yarn that they would move around for whoever was like speaking. Students, like, there was a Javier, who was a male student in the back. He was taking notes, and he was going to be about to, like, come up and hand those notes to other students. Near the end of the video, or near the end of Socratic, I did have a student become very anxious, and she had some tears. And even though a lot of students were giving her sticky notes and encouraging her, she just felt way too anxious for this. But she says, like, that she's not really sure. Like, I think it was partly that she's a very quiet student, partly that she wasn't as prepared, and also partly, like, she just wasn't feeling very confident in this and wants to try again. So they were synthesized challenge ideas. Their reflection showed personal and academic growth. They reflected on what anything changed their mind. What questions did they use? What did they contribute? And what surprised them about the Socratic. And a lot of them said that they were surprised at how they could have a dialogue about multiple sources. They're surprised about some of the students, like what they shared. They're surprised that everyone was engaged. And that's such a cool thing. Even, like, all of my diverse students were so engaged. Some sample tools, just to show you, like, what their rubric was, is that I have a holistic rubric, and I go through with them about what's, like, outstanding, but participant does not dominate the discussion. It goes parts of it. Offers solid analysis, prepared. So all of those things, and it goes all the way down to a D or an F, and we talk about that, but then, like, I try to be very quick with my feedback, because I want them to have immediate feedback and to be able to help them with this. And then here is the level 1 and level 2 sheet. I give them examples of some questions, and then review the 3 level questions, because we had taught this beforehand. And I give them some prompts and remind them and set them on their way. Critical reflections on using this. It was a rich dialogue. There was peer-supported analysis. There was differentiated engagement for all students, not just my 14 gifted or advanced students, not just the ones that said that they were used to speaking in class. A lot of my quieter students really, really got their voices heard. And one of them said in the reflection, like, I felt like I could contribute because I had prepped. And that was kind of cool. Challenges, a lot of them actually, like, defaulted to opinion over textual evidence. I was giving them sticky note feedback, and I was also writing on the board. And one of the things I was writing on the board, go back to the text, and we need to review that and work on that and practice that, and then try again with another Socratic. There's performance anxiety. Some kids reflected about a fear of wrong answers, and that students wanted to dominate. That was a large theme. Like, I want to separate them into 3 groups instead of just 2, and then kind of not pair them up, but have a triad of them up. I want to have more sentence starters, like, on the tables for them to just glance down on, and take some reflective time before Socratic begins, and have them, like, start and prioritize some questions. Students did advocate for more of this, and they want more teachers to do it. They wanted, they did also ask for 3 groups because they just were slightly frustrated, but they also want the same amount of time for 3 groups, which I told them we were going to have to go a little bit shorter. And really want a system where the kids who like to talk don't talk. Personal growth and advocacy. It deepened my understanding of gifted learners' emotional needs. Like, some of their anxieties, I feel like I might have been able to guess about, but I didn't actually see it in actuality until it happened. And then also I saw some of their strengths and some moments to shine for some of my kids who just needed the opportunity and the push. I recognize more of an importance of autonomy, safety, pure voice. Like, it's just such a learning-centered activity that then they take to do their own talking just to me through their papers, and I feel like this gives them a setting of where their voice is very important, not just in the system of making them have a grade. I showed how some students struggle putting words on paper, sometimes have an easier time speaking. And then I talked with those students about how they can record themselves and text to, no, speech to text, and how to like break through with that. And then a demonstrated need for differentiation for anxious students. And I shared this all with my ACA department and also my dual enrollment colleagues, but I'm also co-department chair of English, and I've been really pushing my different levels, not just advanced students, to be doing Socratics like after this experience, because I do think it's really cool, and I'm trying it with my college prep kids with a lot more scaffolding, chunking, not 6 texts, only 1, and seeing how they're going to do with it. And students really want them. I've had a bunch of teachers who have come and asked for some of my materials from. Thank you for watching. Sorry it was so long, and also like that my hand's probably moving up and down, but I appreciate it and really took away some golden nuggets from this class.